Welcome everyone to my One Incense Stick Ghost Story program. Just from the title, you've probably already guessed that I'll be telling ghost stories for the duration of one incense stick. As you all know, these days everyone needs to stay home to protect their health, and when you're home, there's a great need for entertainment. That's one of the reasons I created this program. People are very curious about the spiritual world, very curious about ghost stories. I've researched and collected them so that today I can sit here and tell all of you ghost stories that are rich in Vietnamese cultural flavor. And now, I'll tell you a ghost story within the span of one incense stick. But we won't be using this incense stick though, because it's too long. If I lit this one, it would burn down completely in about an hour and a half. I couldn't possibly talk for that long. I don't have the stamina. So, I decided to light a smaller incense stick like this one and tell stories for about 15 to 20 minutes. And I hope you all will experience a wide range of emotions through my dramatic, mysterious, and captivating ghost stories. Now, I'll light it and we'll begin the story. Have you ever heard the phrase Kohon before? Kohon, or wandering souls, are a very familiar spiritual image to us Vietnamese people. Kohon are essentially ghosts, spirits that are very numerous out on the streets and roads. Cung Kohon, or offering to wandering souls, is a Vietnamese custom performed at home on the 2nd or 16th day of every lunar month. It's celebrated especially grandly in the 7th lunar month, which people often call Ghost Month or Thang Bay Ko Hon. That's because, in that month, the gates of hell open and countless spirits from the underworld flood into the human world. And today, I'm kicking off the first episode of One Incense Stick with a story about Cung Ko Hon. Why are they called Ko Hon? Ko Hon are restless, wandering souls. When they die, they have no place to rest, no family to make offerings for them at home, no one to commemorate them, light incense, or provide what they need. So, they simply drift aimlessly on the streets and roads. If they have no home to return to, they must inhabit or cling to things they find out there. There's a saying about Ko Hon that goes something like this: hidden by riverbanks or roadside bushes, carried by streams to cloud-kissed mountains, under grassy patches or shady trees, lonely by desolate inns and bridges, seeking refuge at temples and shrines, at market entrances or river bends, in open fields, on burial mounds, or in bamboo thickets. Just these few lines show that everywhere around us, on every street and road, there are Ko Hon, there are spirits. That's why, wherever we go, whatever we say, we should never accidentally offend or disrespect those unseen, those in the shadows. And that's also one of the reasons why families need to perform Chung Ko Hon. Why do we do it? It's a form of charity for the spirits. They gather to receive the offerings that the living make for them. When they receive those, they will in turn give us other things. For example, they'll give us good luck, prosperity in business, or small intuitions in life to help us overcome certain misfortunes. Today, I'll tell you a story about a family that had a tradition of performing Cung Ko Hon very meticulously, properly, and respectfully. The one in charge of these offerings was the grandmother. Elderly people, as you know, are very particular about rituals. So, on the 2nd and 16th of every lunar month, grandmother would carefully set out all the offerings. Because of this, the family always enjoyed smooth and successful careers, and their home was harmonious, prosperous, and happy. This family consisted of 4 people: the grandmother, a married couple, and 1 child. However, this family began to experience problems after the grandmother passed away. The son no longer applied himself to his work. Instead, he started to indulge in hedonistic pleasures and heavy drinking. The wife, who was the daughter-in-law, used to be well behaved, but now, without her mother-in-law's supervision, she became foul-mouthed, slovenly, and constantly picked fights with the neighbors. The grandson became mischievous and disruptive, constantly annoying the villagers. As a result, everyone in the neighborhood viewed this family as some kind of undesirable element and didn't like them. And today was the second day of the lunar month, traditionally the day for Kunkohon. Instead of grandmother performing the ritual, now the wife took charge. She laid out a tray, and on that tray were just 3 cups of incense water, some salt and rice. And that was it. Absolutely nothing else. But let me inform all of you. A proper Kunkohon altar requires many things. It includes 12 bowls of cooled rice porridge, symbolizing the 12 zodiac animals. The spirits who died at a certain age would come and eat from the bowl corresponding to their zodiac sign. Next, there are small sweets and candies to offer to child spirits of Feng Hai. Besides that, we need votive paper, also known as hell money, and paper clothes, which we burn for the deceased after the ritual. Though currently, burning votive paper and paper clothes is being limited for environmental protection reasons. Most importantly this, salt and rice. The rice is to invite the Kohon to eat, while salt has properties to ward off spirits. That's why after performing Kunkohon, we take the salt and rice and sprinkle it on the street, scattering the rice first, then flicking the salt. This is so that after inviting them to eat the rice, we use the salt to send them away, preventing them from staying in our house after finishing the offerings. But this wife was so careless, setting out only the most ordinary and trivial items. She lit an incense stick, jabbed it in with a thud, then went into the living room, put on a horror movie, and sat there eating snacks, very comfortably. There was absolutely no sincerity in her Kohon offerings. While she was watching the movie, her young son was playing hopscotch in the yard, right near the offering tray. He kept jumping back and forth. It wouldn't be so bad if he was just playing hopscotch. But he actually jumped over the offering tray, over the offerings that the Kohon were eating. As he was jumping back and forth like that, you'd think nothing would happen. But then he fell. No one pushed him. He just fell. And then he cried. His mother yelled out from inside, "What's all that noise? Why are you always crying?" The child sobbed, "Mom, it pushed me. Mom, it pushed me." The mother replied, "It's your fault. Don't play with it anymore. If you play with it, it'll always push you. Stop playing." But the mother didn't know that the boy had been playing alone the whole time. He wasn't playing with any neighborhood kids. Chilling, isn't it? After that, the mother didn't care one bit about the child. She left him there and went into the bathroom to wash her hair. How crazy is that? While the wife was washing her hair, let me tell you something. If we make offerings to higher beings, like deities, ancestors, or Buddha, you'll see the incense smoke rise straight up, as if the higher beings are receiving it. But if you light incense and offer it to Kohon on the street, you'll see the smoke drift downwards, hovering low to the ground. If you pay attention when making offerings, you'll notice the difference between incense smoke for higher beings and for unseen Kohon. As for this incense stick, the one I'm using for the story, its smoke is just hovering horizontally. I wonder if there's something here or not. It's just hovering. After that, the wife finished washing her hair and stepped into the living room, only to be horrified. She looked around and saw salt and rice scattered all over the house. She looked around again and saw her son gleefully skipping around with the bowl of salt and rice. spilling it all over the house. She was furious, dragged him out, and gave him a severe beating. The boy cried his eyes out. Then she took a broom, swept up the salt and rice, and threw it in the trash. But everyone, as I mentioned earlier, after making offerings, we scatter the salt and rice on the street to send the Kohon away, preventing them from entering the house. Now, this boy's unintentional action effectively opened the door and invited the Kohon right into her house. And everything strange began to happen when night fell. When it was dark, the husband came home, as usual, drank himself silly, then climbed into bed and slept. The wife didn't even pay attention to him, being too accustomed to this sight. She completed all her evening routines, then also climbed into bed to sleep. She pulled the blanket over herself and lay there, half asleep, drifting into slumber in the silent, eerie stillness of the house at night. She started to hear a sound. I think everyone, at some point, when trying to sleep, has heard that sound. It's a sound from somewhere in the house, but you can't pinpoint exactly where. Maybe the kitchen, the next room, upstairs, or even right in your own room. A bit unsettling, right? You try to reassure yourself it's just a cat or a mouse, or something falling, creating the noise. And that was exactly how the wife thought and explained it. She just lay there and went to sleep, not paying any attention to the sound. Then, after she had slept for a little while, just as the sound seemed to have stopped, it actually became faster, increasingly faster, clearer and clearer. So much so that she jolted awake. She gasped, terrified and disoriented. The sound kept echoing in her mind. When she finally opened her eyes, she saw a dark shadow standing in the corner of the room. Utterly panicked, she rubbed her eyes, doing everything to make her vision clearer. She looked closely at what the dark shadow was, and it was just a clothes rack. Everyone, it was a clothes rack, and she'd hung black clothes on it. So in the dark, she'd woken up startled and thought it was a dark shadow. Once she knew it was just the clothes rack, she wasn't scared anymore. She went back to sleep, sinking into slumber. But this time her sleep wasn't as deep as before. She tossed and turned, rolled from side to side, then opened her eyes. And lo and behold, the clothes rack was right next to her, right by where she was lying. She was bewildered, panicked, wondering why the clothes rack had moved like that. Before she could even process it, the clothes rack suddenly toppled, and then there was a sudden, violent banging at the door. A thump, 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 thump. She jolted, turned to her husband, and cried, "Honey, honey, wake up, wake up!" But her husband lay motionless like a corpse. He was too drunk. He'd been drinking all day, so now he was sleeping like the dead. He didn't move, showed no reaction to help her at all. Forced to face it alone, she slowly got out of bed, crept towards the door, grabbed the doorknob, gently turned it, and opened the door. Standing at the door was her son. She pulled him into her arms. He was crying, "Mom, I'm scared, so scared. Mom, I'm so scared I can't sleep, Mom, Mom." She hugged him and went back to her bed. Mother and son huddled together under the blanket, pulling it over their entire bodies, and lay absolutely still, tightly embracing each other. Then, nothing else happened. Everything became normal again. After a while, she slowly lifted the blanket, peeked out, and saw the door was slightly ajar. A small shadow stood outside the door, a shadow just the size of her son. She gasped, pulled the blanket back over herself, and instinctively began chanting, "Namo Amitabha Buddha, Namo Amitabha Buddha." Just chanting, because now she had clearly seen the form of a ghost. After she finished chanting, she suddenly remembered, if it was her young son he wouldn't have had the strength to bang on the door so violently just now. Then she suddenly realized that what she was holding was growing cold. Everyone. She looked down at the child she was embracing. Imagine holding your child, and then you look down, and the one you're holding is looking back at you with that to face. She gasped, let go of the child, and rushed out the door. Once outside, she immediately hugged the one standing there, and now she could confirm that the one currently standing outside the door was her real son. The one she had been holding all this time was a ghost, a demon, because it was freezing cold, its face stark white, without a trace of blood. The real son outside was crying, just as he always cried to her. Mom, son, that one hit me. It chased me out of the room. It won't let me sleep. Mom, I'm so scared. Mom, don't leave me, Mom. She hugged him tightly, stroking his head and reassuring him. Mommy's here. Mommy's here. Don't be scared, don't be scared. Mommy's here, Mommy's here. Mother and son comforted each other. Standing there at the door, she decided to turn back and look at the one in the room, lying on the bed. And then she saw him. She saw her son, and she also saw her husband, sitting up in bed, their faces stark white, devoid of blood, wearing cold smiles. Then slowly, they bared their teeth, their eyes bulged, and they began to laugh aloud. When morning came, from that night onwards, all the neighbors looked at this family differently, because the three people in this family had completely changed. The drunken husband became a diligent worker. The foul-mouthed wife became a well-behaved, virtuous wife. The mischievous son became an incredibly obedient child. It was as if they had gone through a traumatic event that changed their personalities, everyone, and then they lived better lives. And today, on the 16th day of the lunar month, the second day for Kung Kohon in the month, this wife also laid out offerings for the Kohon. But this time, it wasn't careless like before. She meticulously prepared all the items I described earlier. She stuck the incense in with a solemn thud, and the Kohon swarmed back to partake of the offerings and all the other items. And among that crowd of Kohon were three spirits: the spirit of the disrespectful wife, the alcoholic husband, and the mischievous son. The story ends here. Oh my goodness, exactly one incense stick, everyone. I just finished telling the story, and the incense stick burned down completely. So that was a story told within the span of one incense stick. Through this story, I think you've all roughly grasped what the issue is, right? It's like a soul swap. Those wandering Kohon out on the streets desperately want a full life. So when they get the chance, they immediately seize it and swap souls. And through the story, we can see that the living family members lived even worse than the Kohon. But once Kohon have a life, they will try their best to live well, because they don't want to be wandering souls anymore. Being a Kohon is very arduous. So, when we live, we must live well. Then our future will be good. That is karma. So that's one incense stick, and it perfectly completed one story that I told. I hope this story about Kung Kohon brought many different emotions to all of you listening. Aside from my own stories, if any of you want to give feedback or share your personal stories, please send an email here. The email address is currently displayed on the screen. I hope you all will support me so we can together create more dramatic, captivating, thrilling stories that carry the spiritual essence of Vietnam. Thank you all very much for watching the first full episode of my One Incense Stick program today. And now, let me introduce you to Huang Fuch, that child who was playing, then fell and just lay there. Everyone, I actually thought he was possessed. Scary. Thank you all very much. I hope you'll watch and share my program widely. Goodbye, and see you again.